time to play Flip the Book. So I'm happy you're going to come along and play this game with me. So it's an intuitive exercise. So I have 3 books. So would you like book 1, 2, or 3?
I would love to have book 2.
Book 2?
Feels a good energy with it.
Very good. So that's the Spirituality, Evolution and Awakened Consciousness. So you have the choice of 1 to 188 pages. Which page would you like?
I will go with 22.
22.
Drum.
Well, this will be interesting. So there's 10 points on this page. So which point would you like?
I'll go with number 2 again.
Number 2. Okay, so it's interesting. There's a bit in this book, and it's just what are religions and what is spirituality, and it just goes through a few points of each. And it says here, I wrote it. Sounded like I didn't write it then. Religions are organizations that offer a connection to their deity through the avenue they choose. There is a hierarchical system in place that clings to history and is generally reluctant to change unless the change increases their power over people. So it's interesting that you've got that. And just so the listeners know, it's not an anti-religion or a pro-spirituality. It was just there's points in here to get people thinking about it. So you've travelled all over the world. What did you learn about religion and organised religion and those kind of things that stayed with you? And did that have a big impact? Is there a reason why that is the paragraph that you got?
I absolutely love how intuitively we pick up this beautiful topic. Religion is such a interesting discipline, if you may, or a framework to help us understand spirituality. But at the same time, right, spirituality is more than a framework because it's an experience and connection by itself. And traveling definitely helped me to finally understand there are things that are bigger than this framework. I grew up as a Christian, so I went to church even before I was born. So my whole family was a traditional Christian family. And I actually shared in my book as well, like, one of the reasons I try to look for my life answer is through church on Sundays. But the answer never satisfies me because I was one of those rebellious kids who ask questions like, okay, if God is all almighty, can he create a rock that he couldn't live, right? And then I always ask, right, if everyone goes to heaven after they die, then wouldn't heaven be overcrowded? Like, how does that work? And, I genuinely wanted to know because I'm just an analytical kid back then, and I want to have the answer. But I never get to really get the intellectual answers or even experience the answer, I should say, by being in a very conventional way of understanding religion, because it's all about I'm not saying all religions and all church are like this, but what I experienced when I was younger is more like do good, be a good person. If you do something bad, go to hell, right? And I never resonate with that. So when I start traveling by myself, when I talk about I was hiking in Switzerland on the Alps, on the beautiful mountains, in the glacier, watching nature itself, then I start to experience more. There's a higher intelligence behind that. Now there's no one telling me how it is, but I'm just experiencing it through the nature. By simply looking at that beautiful glacier, the waterfall coming in, and I just realized, oh wow, there's something more than that I never connected to. And I wouldn't even call spirituality back then because I didn't have the vocabulary. I didn't have any teaching other than reading the Bible itself. And then I think across the year, I start getting to experience going to other churches. When I realized I'm Freeman, and I'm also Hong Kongese, and I'm also a global citizen. It's the same with the religious framework itself, because I can be a Christian, but I can also be more than a Christian who understand Buddhism, who understand Hinduism, who understand all sorts of other religion, also have their merits. Because when we are bringing the truth from one set of religion framework, we don't have to reject the other set of truth of the other
Excellent.
religion.
Yeah.
And this is what the dangerous part comes in today, because when we are talking about cultural wars, we are trying to say my God is true and yours are false.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to use my cause is better than your cause argument to try to win over each other. I use this analogy in my book, which I think is the easiest way to understand. It's like, think about the supercomputer in our pocket, which is our mobile phone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the software, the app itself, they are the beliefs. Yeah. And when we have more apps in a folder, that folder become our worldview. Yeah.
Yeah.
And no matter whether you're using iPhone or Android or whatever phone it is, there's always an underlying operating system.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that operating system is our level of consciousness. Yeah. Now
Yeah.
let's play, because when we set this premise, right? So in this device, what happened is in the religions folder, which in my folder, I have renamed it spirituality, but it doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
what it resonates with the audience. So in this folder, let's say I brought up as a Christian. So I always have Christian installed in this folder, even before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
And most people would then spend their life using the same app, right? And
Mm-hmm.
believing this is true and living the life as the only way that I've been taught. But as I grow traveling, what I exchange with more people, including even in Christian, when I was in Romania, I actually first time I met Mormons. And I have no clue what Mormons is. And people told me, oh, they are straight Christian, they are cows, be careful, they'll brainwash you, all this and that, right? And I don't share that to say whether they are valid or invalid, because when I start traveling more, and I have Mormons friends as well, and I realize when I can install also a Mormon app in my folder, I don't necessarily need to use this app as my personal practice, but I can open this app to understand and put on a new lens to see religion as a topic. And when we are able to do that, we can then install Buddhism. We can then install any kind of religious app in the folder and expand your folder, expand your worldview. To an
Yeah.
extent, I'm still comfortable to call myself a Christian, but I'm also comfortable to be with friends and even have Buddhism practice myself as well.
Yeah.
And by doing that, now we're expanding that folder to an extent. We are raising uh, the possibility of our life, because we are not fighting against each other, but we
Yes.
are actually upgrading ourselves to a next version of our
Evolving.
phone, of our consciousness, of the folder, right? So I
Yeah.
think it's beautifully how we intuitively bring up
Yeah.
this
Oh, actually,
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it's interesting because you've thought a lot about it. I can tell it by the way you're talking about it. And whether it's religion or spirituality or belief systems or even ethics, our different types of ethics that we run, is that when you come at it with an open mind and an open heart, you'll find what resonates with you. And that's the uniqueness of you building your own, I always say, understanding. I like to move away from beliefs. Beliefs to me are things that we can be indoctrinated to and we can adopt, etc., that we can cling to and not really understand. Whereas when you have an understanding, and which is forever changing, as it's forever changing, that if we work on broadening our understanding and our awareness, we become more rounded and more grounded as well. I must admit, it's the first time I've ever had a conversation where spirituality has been explained with apps and iPhones. So it is the modern era.
Here we go.
I
and,
like
and
it.
and I love that, because it's integration, right? I think there's a point in time where when we talk about spirituality and Asian beliefs and Asian practices, we always dial back our time clock into thousands of years back, right? Which is a great way to understand the practice. But we do live in this modernized world,
Yeah.
right? So how can we integrate both? How can we integrate that Asian philosophy into the day-to-day living we are now? right? When there are planes on the sky, when we can use any kind of app to have access of global knowledge through any search engine, right? How can we integrate both? And I think that's why I'm so passionate with the work that I'm doing, with the topics that I discuss and the life coaching I'm doing with global citizens as well. For the reason, I think integration is actually the essential step to really make change, because intellectually understanding spirituality doesn't help us, right? Like we most of us, if the audience meditate as one of your practice, or praying, or in however form that you are being in tune with your own self, right? People doesn't care about how many thoughts or how less thoughts we have when we are closing our eyes and crossing our legs on a chair, on a cushion, right? But everyone cares how compassionate we can be, how impactful we can be, and how loving we can be as a person when we are making influence in this world. And I think that's why using iPhone to look at spirituality
I'm
is
only showing
possibly
my age, maybe.
my
That's what's happening.
favorite way to help anyone in this modern world to understand there is actually as simply as an upgrade button to click to help humanity forward.
Yeah.
Because instead of fighting each other saying my app is better than your app, my worldview is better than your worldview, we just need to click that upgrade button. And when we level up our level of consciousness, when we level up our operating system, we then able to expand ourselves to see through spirituality or mind, body, spirit in a way that, wow, that's an expand awareness that I never thought about before. Right.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you, Freeman, for talking to me. I've enjoyed our conversation.
I've enjoyed so much as well, Lorraine. Thanks for having me.